All right, let's take you through a heap of older, rare Canadian death metal. Adenine, Govern the Align. This CD is from 2001, something like that. Agony, Apocalyptic Dawning. That's a compilation CD, originally old material, came out at a later time. This is their really rare CD called Life, so Agony, Life. It's quite the rarity. The Amaymon and Purulence split CD. That's kind of a death metal classic split. Kind of a cool, killer old album right there. Aphasia, Beyond the Infinite Horizon. Apostasy. And the album title is in French. Remember, this has some really nice guitar in it. I really like the guitar playing in this one. Atheretic, Adhesion, Adversion. As I recall, this is quite brutal. It's got some nice brutal riffs, some pounding drums on it. Blastfame, Abstract Evolution. This one again, just brutal and kind of straightforward fast. Next album is called Bound in Human Flesh, Sick Lust for Revenge. And this Bound in Human Flesh is actually really, really good. I would even give it 5 stars. It's surprisingly very, very good Canadian death metal. Bound in Human Flesh. Readily available. It's pretty awesome too. Okay, next album is a rarity called Butchered Razor-Eaten Flesh. Just some nice pounding Cryptopsy sort of sounding stuff. Next album is called Cryptic Cremation, Profanation album. And this is, I'd give it a 3-star sort of thing. It's pretty weak on the bass end, but pretty interesting sort of melodic activity. The Cryptopsy Ungentile Exhumation was originally cassette tape. I've got a CD version of this, and I believe that this is getting to be more difficult to get. But that's an excellent Cryptopsy demo right there. Blasphemy Flesh album, and this is the version on Invasion Records. Looks like this. It's part of my collection. It's kind of a death metal essential, None So Vile. This was at one point, I think, in my death metal top 10 albums of all time. Canadian death metal Cryptopsy, None So Vile. That's on War Records. Kind of a rarity, Darkness Eternal, Dawn of the Suffering. It's, again, it's kind of rare, mildly interesting, 3 out of 5 stars sort of deal. Deafness, Oppressing the Silence. That's, expensive, rare gem, and it's quite brutal. It's actually one of the top Canadian death metal brutal albums for sure. Next up, Daemon, Descend Dethrone, another 5-star album. This is excellent from Daemon, spelled D-E-A-M-O-N. Descend Dethrone, that is a definite recommended Canadian death metal album. They have an earlier release called End of Ages, which is kind of rare, just as interesting as the other album I just showed you. Decerebration, Pure Hatred. The demo sounded amazing on YouTube. The CD version from a Chinese label didn't sound too very impressive to me. Demence, Total Dememberment. This is a nice, brutal gem. Demence from Canada. That's an excellent, brutal, great production. Deuterium, Blustery Uprising is the name of this album. And this has got some super hyper drums, amazing drums. It's a short EP, I think, and it's just ripping. Discomposed, that's another death metal gem. Absolutely. Unholy Reflection from Discomposed. That's become a little bit more available, and that's a great old school death metal album. Quite new is Dungeon Serpent, World of Sorrows. This one I really, really like. It's got a nice old school sound to it. I like the album art, and it's a very, very good album. A rarity called Endless Life Drawing. Fleshfeast. It's like this. It's pretty standard stuff, but quite brutal. Gorelust, Reign of Lunacy. That's a pretty popular Canadian death metal gem right there. Reign of Lunacy. I'm not sure what version mine is. Cryptic Soul Production, European edition. It might be partially unofficial, I'm not sure. Rarity is called Haiduk Spellbook, Haiduk, their album Spellbook. Not many people have heard this one, but it's a little more modern and excellent. Hidden Pride, Brutal Advice. That's some awesome brutal death metal from Canada. One of the top brutal death metal from Canada. It came in a few different colors. I happen to have a purple edition of Hidden Pride. Inner Thought is one of the CDs I've had around in my collection for one of the longest times. Worldly Separation, another really good Canadian release. It's got sort of industrial. Look how old school it looks. It's definitely it's an old album, 1994. Another old band, Kataklysm, The Mystical Gate of Reincarnation. This is probably Nuclear Blast America. There's the logo here, Kataklysm. Surprisingly, my only Kataklysm album. Morbid Pain Split is actually really, really good. A nice, rare gem right there, Morbid Pain. And even more difficult to get is their Spirit of Evil. I think this might be a full length, but the Morbid Pain, Spirit of Evil. That's, looks like, trying to find a year for you guys, but you can look that one up. Really good. Myopia, pretty forward, straight brutal death metal. Pretty good album called Concentration of Suffering for you brutal fans out there. A death metal classic and underground as well. Necromortis, Burning Priest. That's a really brutal album. It's got some kind of searing distortion. It's sort of like Imprecation of Texas or maybe Deicide Legion album. It's very, very good. Another one that's great is the Necronomicon Silver Key EP. Kind of a rarity and very, very good. Nice and brutal. I didn't care for their later releases. A rarity called Necopolis. This I got straight from the band for free, or you can buy it on Discogs for $100. Your choice. Necrotic Mutation, The Realm of Human Illusions. That's kind of new to me. I bought that one not too many months ago. And it sounded pretty brutal. Nefarious, Global Warning. Another rarity. It wasn't too standout. I gave it one spin, put it in the CD rack, and there it sits. Goreguts, Colored Sands. One of their newer albums. I love the band Goreguts, and here we're going to have more Goreguts. From Wisdom to Hate album. Obscura, remember when that came out, I was expecting another Erosion of Sanity, and I got Obscura. I grew to like this. It really is kind of a cool technical feat. The Erosion of Sanity, one of the best death metal albums of all time, came from Canada. Considered Dead, just a gem, absolute gem of death metal right there. Goreguts, live in Rotterdam. I'm not sure if that's a CDR, bootleg, or what, but I gave it one spin. I have the edition of Metal Mind Productions, Considered Dead. That's a digipack, and I keep it in a wrap. Metal Mind Productions of Poland always makes good sounding digipacks. So if you can tolerate a digipack, anything by Metal Mind is highly recommended. I also have another demo anthology called And Then Comes Lividity. It's got their demos on it. I don't have any of the original demos, but I do have a CD edition of some Goreguts. November Grief, all female, old school death metal. If you like Mythic or Decada from the United States, here is an all-female Canadian death metal band called November Grief, To Live in This World of Chaos. Their demos are available online. This was just kind of a special limited edition that came out of November Grief. A brutal rarity called Obscene Crisis, Silence of the Mind. That is quite good. So just in the same status as Deafness is this Obscene Crisis. I think I paid $125 for this probably, but it's quite the brutal listen. I really enjoyed it. Paroxysm, Revelation is Denied. This reminded a whole lot of Suffocation. So if you like, not as technical as Effigy the Forgotten, but just kind of Suffocation style with a bit of kind of, I suppose hardcore influences. I hate to say it that way, but Paroxysm, pretty good album. Rotting the Forgotten. This is a compilation. I kind of forget what's on here. I don't know if it's demos or what, but they have some good stuff on there. Their official EP is called Crushed, and that's another kind of nice brutality. It shouldn't cost you too much money to find this Rotting Crushed. It's really good. Kind of a rarity is a Serrated Scalpel, Suspended Misery. That's kind of murky. It's still brutal. It's still decent. It's pretty rare, I think. Spasma, Deep Inside, another old death metal. Just a 3 out of 5 stars sort of deal. Summertime Daisies, The Clarity of Impurity. That's quite the good album and pretty recognized. I think a lot of people know Summertime Daisies. I mean, what an obnoxious band name, and the album is quite brutal and quite good. Thorazine had several probably good releases. I have 2 of them. I've got Geneticide, which I thought was pretty decent. But what I really liked from them was the Seed the Black Sky from Thorazine. This one's really good. I'd recommend Seed the Black Sky if you can find it. Next up, Traumatism. This album, awesome. Totally awesome. So the album's called Truculent from Traumatism from Canada, and that's a great brutal album. I really enjoyed that. It's got a bit of grindcore into it and quite enjoyable. And then finally, an album called Winter Bestowed, Within My Labyrinthine Heart. Winter Bestowed. Kind of forgot what it sounds like, but that concludes my Canada. Thanks for watching.